Yeah. So our next speaker is John Gibbs. He is the president and director of the California Map Society. And today he is going to talk to us about three maps of Boston, 1975.
Good morning to all in the western half of the country, and good afternoon to everyone attending from the eastern half. My cartographic heart is in the eastern half of the country, as I grew up in Philadelphia. So at previous BAM and GLAM meetings, I've brought along maps of the American Revolution from the year 1776, focusing on New York and New Jersey. So these three maps will be the prequel and what was going on in New England in the year 1775. So after 12 years of political struggle, focusing in the hotbed of New England, the American Revolution breaks out in 1775. So it's fitting that the first of the three maps that I want to quickly present is this a map from Thomas Jeffries in 1774. And it shows southern New England, the colonies of Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts. These are all up on the digital gallery. And Tom, if you can turn on the dots, please, and we'll go to dot number 4. And what I want to point out here is this wonderful cartouche showing the pilgrims and the rock showing 1620, of course, in Roman numerals. And then adjacent to that, at dot number 5, there is a detailed inset of Boston Harbor. But what I want to bring your attention to are the three dots at the top of the map. So dot number 1 shows the Boston vicinity. And after the Boston Tea Party, the British Army occupied Boston. And out to the west, we see dots number 2 and 3. Just hold it right there, Tom. 2 and 3, Lexington and Concord. So the British knew that there was trouble brewing, and at Lexington and Concord in April 1775 were fired the shots heard round the world. So the Longfellow poem tells us that it was 1 if by land and 2 if by sea. Tom, can we just cone down right on a little bit more to show the Boston Peninsula? And then you can see Boston right there, and Charlestown is across the Charles River. So the British Army went to by sea, that is, crossing the Charles River, and went out to Lexington and Concord to seize a cache of colonial arms and maybe nab some of the political leaders. Well, the first shots were fired at Lexington, and then at Concord Bridge in dot number 3, the militia gathered. The British retreated to Boston, and they came under heavy fire from the militia firing at them from behind rocks and so on. The British sustained heavy casualties. Now, the second map, this is a very charming map. This one is from the Leventhal Center at the Boston Public Library. The first map was from the Rumsey Center at Stanford. So let's take a look at the map, point number 1. So point number 1 shows Boston Neck, and Boston itself was occupied by the British Army, and the Royal Navy controlled the harbor. But the militia was now, after Lexington and Concord, pouring into the countryside and hemming in the British. At point number 2, in June of 1775, the British command wakes up and they find that the Americans have fortified this position in Charlestown. Well, the British general is General Gage, and he can't put up with these upstart Americans putting cannon out there where they can threaten him. So he orders an attack on the positions at Bunker Hill, and this is point number 4. And this is where takes place the what has come down to us known as the Battle of Bunker Hill. So let's now go to the third map, Tom. And this is a map called the Plan of Action at Breeds Hill, where the battle actually took place. It's come down to be known to us as the Battle of Bunker Hill. There are several versions of this map. This is actually a later one published in 1797 in New York. And this also comes from the Leventhal Map Center at the British Public Library. Well, so now we have the morning of June 17th, 1775. The British are forming up for battle, and at dot number 1, Royal Navy ships move into the river, Charles River, and begin to bombard the American positions at Bunker Hill or Breeds Hill. Now let's zoom into number 5. And number 5 shows Warren's Redoubt, which is the center of the American fortification. It's an earthwork, and it's named after Dr. Joseph Warren, who is a citizen soldier, a very prominent physician in Boston, and really a man of many parts. He actually wound up giving his life here at the Battle of Bunker Hill. Now, dot number 2, Tom, this is where the British make their landing. The map is graphically presented with the British positions in red and the American positions in blue. And at dot number 3 shows the eventual success of the British in capturing the American positions, but it's only on the 3rd British assault when the American ammunition runs out. Dot number 4 shows the escape route of the Americans off the Charlestown Peninsula. So this was a victory of sorts for the British, but it came at great cost. And the lessons of attacking Americans in fortified positions and the carnage that it resulted for the British Army was never forgotten by the British command. So George Washington arrives to take command a month after the Battle of Bunker Hill. And let's now go back to the previous map, Tom. So George Washington takes command, and there's pretty much stalemate in the remainder of 1775 and the first couple of months of 1776. And then let's cone down on number 3, because in March 1776, George Washington takes advantage of an oversight by the British. And he fortifies this position on Dorchester Hill. And from here, his cannon threaten the British. And there's a negotiation, and the British General Gage has to evacuate Boston because otherwise the cannon will fire upon him. He evacuates, he takes the Loyalists and his army, and he sails off to far off Nova Scotia. This takes place on March 17th, 1776, and it is still known today as Evacuation Day. So the Americans know that the British will have to return. They return to New York the following July. But this is the prequel story in Boston. And let's go 2 images ahead. And this is the historic background to the book that I wrote and published this year, The Long Shot, The Secret History of 1776. Many members have actually read and posted nice reviews on that, and I thank you very much. And there's the bell, and I should have about 30 seconds left. I'll take a breath. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Ron.
And just to chime in, thank you, Ron. Leventhal, you meant to say Boston Library, not, of course, British Library.
Yes, thank you. Thanks very much, Jim.
Any questions for Ron?
Ron, Just a quick question. What was the population of the civilian population of this area, Boston and the suburbs?
Thanks, Jay. Boston was the third largest city in British North America, had a population at this time of 10,000. New York was second with 20,000. Philadelphia was the largest with 30. And Charleston in South Carolina also had around 10,000. Almost everybody, the 3 million plus people living in the colonies, mainly lived on farms.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Tom, for running the maps for me.